The distress signal had been repeating for 11 hours when someone finally answered it. Not a battleship, not a rescue fleet, not even a military patrol. Just an old human cargo freighter drifting at the edge of the Black Veil Nebula with half-functioning engines, and a pilot who looked more exhausted than alive. Inside the damaged alien school transport, 42 children sat in darkness listening to alarms that no longer sounded urgent. After enough hours, even fear becomes quiet. The oxygen was failing. The heating systems had collapsed, and somewhere beyond the burning clouds of the nebula, raider ships were hunting for survivors. The children had already heard the official broadcast. Rescue probability, 0%. In every civilized system across the galaxy, those words meant the same thing. You are already dead. The oldest child on board was only 14 cycles old. The youngest had stopped crying hours earlier because the air was too thin to waste breath on tears. Outside the shattered hull, lightning rolled across the nebula like glowing veins inside a dying god. Wreckage drifted through the darkness, destroyed cruisers, broken mining ships. Ancient military debris swallowed by radiation storms centuries ago. The Black Veil was not a place people entered. It was a place civilizations disappeared. The Varian school transport had never meant to cross into it. Their convoy had been evacuating children away from the border war when raiders ambushed the fleet near the outer colonies. Escorts were destroyed in minutes, engines crippled, communications shattered. Then the currents pulled the transport deeper into the nebula. One by one, rescue signals from nearby fleets vanished from the network. Nobody was coming. That was when the human answered. The screen inside the transport flickered weakly before revealing a tired man sitting inside a dimly lit cockpit. He had gray streaks in his beard, grease across one side of his face, and heavy eyes that looked like they had gone years without proper sleep. For several seconds, he just stared silently at the terrified children. Then he leaned closer to the microphone. "All right," he said calmly. "Who's still breathing over there?" The children looked at each other in confusion. One of the teachers, bleeding from her shoulder, stepped toward the console. "You received our signal?" "Yeah," the human replied. "Hard to miss. Thing S been screaming across emergency channels for half a sector." The teacher's voice trembled. "Please, the military said they cannot enter the nebula." The human glanced toward his cracked windshield where purple lightning illuminated the cockpit. "Yeah," he muttered. "Smart of them." A loud metallic bang echoed somewhere inside his ship. The teacher swallowed nervously. "Then why are you here?" The human reached down, grabbed a cold metal mug floating beside him, took a sip and shrugged. "Because there are kids on board?" That answer spread silence through the transport. Not strategy, not profit, not politics, just children. Far beyond the nebula, Galactic Command had already closed the case file. The official declaration labeled Transport Vessel 17 as a catastrophic wartime loss. 42 deceased. Minimal probability of recovery. No authorized rescue operations. But Elias Rourke had never cared much about authorization. His cargo freighter, the Morning Tide, was one of the oldest ships still operating in civilized space. Half the systems were manually wired together. Entire panels had been replaced with salvaged metal plates. The engines sounded sick even during normal flight. It was not a hero ship. It was barely a functioning ship. And yet it was the only vessel insane enough to enter the Black Veil voluntarily. Warning sirens suddenly screamed across Elias' cockpit. A radar pulse flashed red. 3 unidentified ships emerging from the storm. Raiders, Elias cursed under his breath. "Well," he sighed, "looks like the neighborhood noticed us." The teacher's face paled. "You must leave immediately." "Nah, you cannot fight them." "Wasn't planning to." The human reached forward and killed every external light on his freighter. Darkness swallowed the cockpit instantly. Only the red glow of failing instruments remained. Then the old cargo ship moved, not away from danger, toward it. The Morning Tide plunged deeper into the nebula as electrical storms exploded around its hull. Cargo containers rattled violently in external clamps, while radiation warnings flooded every display. Inside the school transport, the children watched the human pilot's tiny vessel disappear into glowing clouds. One child whispered softly. "He's coming for us?" The teacher stared at the screen in disbelief. No military doctrine could explain what she was witnessing. No species in the galaxy willingly entered the Black Veil. Humans apparently did it with cargo engines and bad decisions. The raider ships accelerated after Elias immediately. Long predatory vessels with serrated hulls cut through the storm clouds while weapons charged beneath their armor plating. A warning transmission echoed through the freighter. Unknown human vessel. Shut down engines and surrender cargo. Elias rolled his eyes. Yeah, not happening. Missiles launched seconds later. The old cargo pilot jerked the controls hard as explosions tore through nearby debris fields. The freighter shook violently. Sparks erupted overhead. Any sane pilot would have fled. Elias instead pushed the engines harder. The morning tide screamed through the storm like it was trying to tear itself apart. One missile clipped the rear hull. Alarms detonated throughout the ship. Hull breach detected. Engine overheating. Radiation shielding compromised. Elias ignored all of it. He was already ripping open maintenance panels beneath his chair while steering with one hand. That was the thing aliens never understood about humans. Human beings could function under absurd levels of chaos. Pain did not stop them. Fear did not stop them. Even common sense occasionally failed to stop them. Another explosion rocked the freighter sideways. One of the cargo containers broke loose and drifted into the storm behind him. Elias suddenly smiled. Then he armed the container remotely. The lead raider ship never realized what happened. The cargo container detonated with enough force to light the nebula like a newborn star. The shockwave ripped directly through the pirate formation. One ship vanished instantly. Another spun out of control into an asteroid field. Inside the school transport, several children gasped. The teacher stared at the tactical display in horror. That was industrial fuel. Human industrial fuel, Elias corrected calmly while pulling blood from his lip. Important difference. More enemy signals appeared on radar, 5 this time. The human sighed heavily. Oh, come on, the children listened as metallic groans echoed throughout his ship. How damaged are you? The teacher asked. Elias glanced toward a burning panel beside him. Well, technically speaking, several parts of my ship are currently on fire. A smaller child stepped closer to the screen. Are you scared? For the first time, the old pilot paused. Outside the cockpit, lightning illuminated his tired face. Kid, he said quietly, if you ever meet someone who says they aren't scared in moments like this, they're either lying or stupid. The child lowered her head. Elias leaned forward slightly. But courage isn't about not being scared. Another explosion shook the ship. It's about deciding something else matters more. Then the transmission cut briefly as the freighter vanished deeper into the storm. Behind him, the raider fleet continued pursuit. Inside Galactic Command, analysts began noticing something impossible. The human cargo freighter was still alive. More concerning, it was heading directly toward the trapped transport instead of away from enemy forces. Military observers watched sensor feeds in stunned silence. One officer finally whispered the question nobody could answer. What exactly are humans willing to survive? No one responded, because the truth terrified them. Human beings had evolved on a death world where survival itself was a daily battle. Extreme weather, predators' disease, starvation, wars. Compared to Earth's history, space was merely another dangerous frontier. And once humans emotionally attached themselves to a goal, they became almost impossible to stop. Elias finally reached the drifting school transport after another 20 minutes of violent pursuit through the nebula. The vessel looked worse up close. Entire sections were torn open. Ice-covered portions of the hull, emergency lights blinked weakly through shattered windows. And inside, 42 children waited silently. Elias stared for a long moment, then his voice softened. All right, kids, he said, let's get you out of here.